Good evening, Pittsburgh Steelers fans. Welcome to the Curtain Call Show. I'm Jeffrey Benedict. I'm always here every week, along with my co-host, Shannon White. Shannon, how you doing tonight?
Doing awesome. Just excited to talk some Steeler football.
Oh, yeah. Well, we've been bringing you this series. We're coming closer and closer to the end, talking about the Steelers draft picks. This week, we're covering the Steelers' sixth-round pick, Connor Heyward, with Ryan O'Blenis. Ryan, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me on. Happy to be here.
All right, so Connor Heyward started his career in Michigan State as a running back, and in his second year, actually led the team in attempts and yards. What was he like as a running back? What kind of running back are we talking about when he was the main guy?
Yeah, so what happened was, that year Michigan State also had another talented running back named L.J. Scott, who ended up getting injured, and so Hayward essentially took over, the running back one duties there and led the team in yards and attempts. And he was never really a running back who was going to break a long run. He was a bruiser in between the tackles. We'll get more into this later, but he's a very versatile runner, strong, not afraid of contact. He was, he did what the team asked him to do and what the team needed him to do. He was, just a Spartan football player, in my opinion.
Yeah, I know. Leading up all the mock drafts and all the projections, everybody was saying that Connor Heyward's coming to the Steelers. 6th round, 7th round, which was prophetic. But a lot of people said it was nepotism. But honestly, I'm very excited about having Hayward because not just because of the family genetics. He is, as you said, he's so versatile. I think he could fill 2 to 3 spots on the depth chart at some positions and allow the Steelers to keep people at other positions where they need a little more depth. Now, he is projected, in my opinion, there maybe a tight end 3, but he could be, basically an H-back at his size. But with his running back experience, they could take some of that pounding and short yardage and goal line situations off of Najee Harris, because they've talked openly this week about trying to keep him from taking such a pounding and a heavy workload. Connor Heyward could easily do that, as well as his H-back position duties. Has he got any kind of special teams experience?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, he used to return kicks too for Michigan State earlier on in his career. But I think, I don't see him doing that in the NFL. I still see him being a valuable special teams asset for the Steelers. He could, on the kickoff team or the kick return team or, the punt team, he's just kind of like a Swiss Army knife, like we said. He's not afraid of contact. He'll be happy to run down there and make a tackle on special teams or to block, do whatever he needs to do to get on the field. So I think, you kind of hit the nail on the head there. He played a variety of positions, Michigan, kick return, running back, tight end, H-back. He was the role that he kind of went to his senior year last year. The running back room was very crowded. They had Kenneth Walker III come in, transfer from Wake Forest, and he kind of just lit the entire country on fire. So, Hayward was able and willing to, if I recall correctly, he might have said it was even his idea that he approached the coaching staff for this change to move to the H-back role. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure I was on a media call with him where he said that. And so he really thrived in that role. He's great at catching the ball, whether that be on the backfield or, offline or inline or whatever he's doing. And, he improved as a blocker throughout the year. I think that's still something, especially at the NFL level, if he is going to stick at tight end, that he's going to need to get a little bit better at. But, like you said, a lot of what Hayward can do, I think is going to be a benefit to other players on the team in general, and it'll allow the Steelers to kind of have a little bit more roster flexibility when they're kind of down to their final 53.
I wanted to talk about him returning kicks, because the biggest thing with a kick returner, obviously, is speed, which Connor Heyward, you're not looking at Connor Heyward, even in his highlights, and being like, that guy's blowing everyone away with his speed, but also vision. Kick returners have to be able to process what's going on very quickly, find the holes, and get there quickly. Does Connor Heyward have like really good vision for a football player? Has he shown that as a kick returner? Did he show that as a running back, that he's just he understands the flow, where to go? Is he that kind of a player?
He averaged around 22 yards per kick return, so it was respectable. His vision as a running back was something that was sometimes called into questions by fans and stuff on social media. It wasn't Michigan State also had a lot of injuries on their offensive line while he was a running back there, so it wasn't all on Hayward, but a lot of the times when he was in there, plays would get stuff for 2-yard gains, and there'd be a whole joke about MSU's play calling when they'd go run for 2 yards, run for 2 yards, incomplete pass. I would say his vision isn't necessarily a strength, but I don't think it was a detriment, as some people might have pointed out. I think there were other factors that kind of were the reason why, but I think he held his own as a running back, especially that year we were talking about, where in 2018, where he had to kind of take on that running back role, as the lead back, and he had 529 yards and 5 touchdowns. So in terms of vision, that's how I wouldn't say it was like his greatest strength, but I also don't think it's something that is going to hold him back in any way.
Yeah, his daddy, Arnhead, he wasn't known for his vision either. His main vision was, as he trampled guys as he ran over them, and lower the shoulder and lower the boom. But the one thing about him being a kick returner that stands out to me is he's got hands. He's got really good hands, and the one touchdown catch in the bowl game was really beautiful. He showed athleticism and body control to make that twist and leaping touchdown catch. And so I think that when you watched a lot of the highlights for Walker on a lot of his long runs, Hayward was the guy who got the kick out block. And then he celebrated, and the teammates celebrated with him, because he seems to be a real a rah-rah guy, a guy that gets his teammates fired up. Did you see a lot of that with Hayward?
Yeah, I think too. Yeah, he's a guy who's gonna get excited and celebrate with you. He's not like, I don't know if he's necessarily gonna come into the Steelers locker room and be like a vocal leader right away. Mm-hmm. But one thing in particular that Mel Tucker, Michigan State's head coach, noticed right away was Hayward's leadership. Hayward actually entered the transfer portal for a brief stint. He was thinking about leaving Michigan State, in that 2019 season, after he kind of lost his running back job to Elijah Collins, but then he decided to come back in 2020. Mark D'Antonio retired. Mel Tucker took over. They allowed Hayward to come back, and right away, actually, Hayward started that 2020 season opener at running back, and Tucker said a reason why he liked Hayward so much is because of his leadership. And you mentioned how he would get the kick out block for Walker and things like that. That's another thing, is that he's going to do all the dirty work in there to do whatever it takes for his team to win. He's not really a guy who's looking to get his own stats, or he's not a guy who has to be the playmaker. I think he's a guy who will do what it takes. And I think, him entering the transfer portal and having the humility to come back and say, you know what, no, this is where I belong. This is where I want to be. I'm going to do whatever it takes to help my team. I think that just kind of shows the character that Hayward has.
Okay, I'm going to list the 3 traits, right, that I'm very curious. I want you to rank them in Connor Heyward's best, in order. Rank them in order for Connor Heyward is what's his best attribute. That would be running the ball, blocking, and catching the ball. Which how would you rate them on him as a player?
I actually think his catching might be his best trait. You mentioned that play against Pittsburgh in the Peach Bowl where he was able to, make an adjustment in the air, track the ball, catch it, come down with it. There's also, I don't know if you saw the highlight of him catching the ball and running over a guy in Nebraska, just trucking him. But, most of the time when the ball is thrown at him, it's caught. He doesn't drop it often, and he's able to get, yards after the catch. So I'd say that, running the ball is probably his second best trait. Obviously, he has the background as a running back, and, he's comfortable catching the ball and making things happen. And as I said, I think his blocking still needs to improve. So I'd probably rank that last for now. I don't think it's bad. I think he really improved throughout the year on it. And as we mentioned, he had a couple of kick-out blocks that sprang a lot of Walker's big runs last year, too. It's not necessarily that he's, a poor blocker. It's just that before his senior year, it's not something that he was asked to do a whole lot. I think that's obviously the area where he'll need to improve most in. But, all three of those traits, I think, are what make him kind of a complete player. And, he's kind of a tweener position-wise or whatever you want to say for the NFL. But, all those different things that he can do, I think is going to be really beneficial to the Steelers in the long run.
Steelers are having their mandatory mini camp this week, and so they was running some 2-minute drills. Now the reporters on site can only give us so much information, but one of them was talking about that he made a really nice one-handed diving catch. I think Kenny Pickett's who threw him the ball, and he said it was a really nice catch, but it sounds like he celebrated a little bit too much. Because today he got the Donkey of the Week or Donkey of the Day T-shirt in honor of him celebrating the catch during the 2-minute drill. And so he said he's a quick study, and he says he won't make that mistake again. But that kind of goes back to his rah-rah enthusiasm, his love of the game. That's something that all the Haywards have. And it's infectious, and it permeates through the whole team. And you can't have too many of them guys that are team first guys and will do whatever is necessary. And but when at one point the Steelers years ago had a running back who returned kicks named Najee Davenport, and he was a big old boy and he wasn't very fast, but they had very few options. And so hopefully Hayward don't get stuck in that situation. Hopefully the Steelers have a lot better options this year, which I think they do. But
yeah, I think they do.
What do you think how it's going to affect, Connor, having your big brother around? It's one thing if you make a mistake and you hear it from the coaches, but he's going to hear it from his big brother. And I think in ways that's a good thing, but it could be a bad thing.
Yeah, I think, there's obviously a pretty decent age gap between the two of them, but you can see their relationship and camaraderie is kind of a lot of that they're going to joke around with each other. But also, when it comes to the football field, I think both guys are going to take things very seriously. And yeah, Cam, I've already read some stuff about, Cam calling out Connor for dropping a pass or something at OTAs or rookie minicamp or whatever it was. And, but I think it'll be a good thing because having somebody like Cam for Connor to lean on, somebody who's been in the NFL a long time, and been with the same organization that you're with in a long time, he's going to be able to show you the ropes, and he's going to be able to tell you what to do, what not to do. Obviously, they're playing different sides of the ball, different positions, so it's not all an apples to oranges comparison. Maybe Aaron might, who knows, try to be a little too hard on him just to prove a point. But I think overall, I really don't think that's something that they can take for granted. I think that's a really strong thing. That's a strong bond that those two are going to have. And the Steelers have several brothers on the team, right? So it's kind of like a whole family dynamic on that team. And I think, they're going to get on each other and call each other out, but they're also going to support each other and hold each other up. And it literally be a brotherhood on the team. So I think that's, not only a good thing for Connor and for Cam, but for the team as a whole. So I would say, yeah, that's a pretty big positive.
One thing with Cameron Heyward is he is well known as one of the most approachable, one of the best Steelers with the media. He's always up for awards on interactions with the media. He's always doing charitable stuff in the community. His interactions with fans are, incredible. Like you cannot find a person in Pittsburgh to give a bad word about Cameron Heyward. Like you won't find a single person that is willing to say anything bad about him at all. Is Connor like that? Was he a person that was approachable to fans, that was, as a member of the media, that was good to ask questions to? What was he like in those situations?
Yeah, so a lot of my time covering the team was, during COVID, where most of the stuff was remote or we didn't have a lot of one-on-one access to him. But every time, I was on a Zoom call with Connor or, post game, and I was there in the media room, he was very, open to talking to the media. He was very well spoken. He's very knowledgeable about the game. He is, like I said, he has leadership quality. His teammates all loved him. So I think they share some of those traits. Definitely my experience with Connor was that he was approachable. But again, my experience the last few years has been a little bit different with him on the team with COVID and stuff. But still, anytime I was able to, be in the room while he was speaking or even ask him a question on Zoom or in a press conference, whatever it was, he was always, he would take the time to answer stuff thoroughly, from me or other reporters. And he would always, be available for whatever, was needed out of him. And, I think he was the same way with the team as he was with the media. He's a very respectable kid. I think, he's going to be really good for that locker room.
It's encouraging to hear, your firsthand account of him, because it matches up with what we've been hearing, based on from all evaluations, pre-draft and since the Steelers selected him. Is there anything that a story or a quality that he has that isn't common knowledge that people who are close to, say, Michigan State would know that maybe we haven't heard? Because like I said, he seems like just a quality kid, a quality young man, athlete. Even though some people say that he might go undrafted, most of I see was around the 6th round. But is there any quality or story that you can share about him that we might not have heard already?
I don't know if anything in particular comes to mind, but I would just go back to that year in 2018, after that year in 2019, where he went back into the portal, and there were a lot of people saying that he quote quit on the team, like fans and stuff like that, which I didn't necessarily agree with. That was very early transfer portal days, so I don't think people quite understood it. Wasn't quite as what it is now, where everybody's entering it. But I think the fact that people had that mindset about him, and he was able to kind of put away all that noise and return to the team, and show humility that way, and show that he was willing to come back and do whatever it took for the team to win, switch positions, whatever it took. I think that's just the kind of guy that he has. I don't have really a personal anecdote with him like that, but I think that kind of just shows the kind of guy he is.
Sorry. Can you hear me? There you go. Yeah. Sorry. Now he was used primarily as a tight end in his last year, and the Steelers have said they're planning on using him primarily as a tight end. That's where they see, I think the tight end, Alfredo Roberts said, the most value they see from him is at the tight end position. Did he line up like on the line as an inline tight end much? And does his height, Matt, did his height show up? Like he's I think 6 foot, whereas most tight ends are 6'4" or taller. Did that show up as a negative for him as a tight end?
So in 2021, MSU used him more as kind of an H-back, where he would come in motion behind the line of scrimmage and kind of play off the line most of the time. I don't think that I do think that's a concern for him in the NFL if he is going to play, inline tight end. Is he going to be able to hold up at his height? And but I don't, in the college game, it didn't really seem detrimental to him at all. As we talked about, he was able to go up and track balls in the end zone. He was able to run people over. He's not shying away from contact. He improved as a blocker throughout the year. He's He's looking for contact. He's not shying away from anything. So I do think, going against NFL caliber athletes, especially if he's got to, try to block a 6'5" defensive end who weighs 295 pounds or something, it's going to be some growing pains for him there. But no, and in the college game, I didn't really see that as a detriment to him. And his 2021 season was, really, honestly, pretty damn good, given that he had never played that position before. So he came in and he did exactly what was asked for him. He had something like 35 receptions, and he also, made the blocks. He got the touchdowns. He was doing everything that he possibly could just to help the team win. And, he did. MSU was projected to win, I think the over-under was 5 games for them. They were coming off of a 2-5 2020 season, and they ended up going 11-2 with a Peach Bowl, New Year's Six victory. And he was a big reason why that offense was so successful. So, he didn't, play a whole lot on the line. He was coming in motion a lot, playing more of a H-back role than a, normal tight end. But, I definitely think that's something that he can learn, and that's a position that he can thrive at.
Yeah, if they can use him out of the backfield some, especially on short yardage like we was talking about earlier, he seems to block well on the move. And I think he will be better if he can get in his blocks against secondary players or linebackers, like you said, avoid the defensive lineman as much as possible due to his size limitations. But did he get very many opportunities during his time at running back in short yardage and goal line situations that you remember?
Yeah, I mean, especially that 2018 year where he was the lead running back. He scored 5 touchdowns that year, and they would, he would usually be the lead back if they were in goal line sets or shotgun or single back, whatever it would be. But yeah, he would operate as pretty much the all down back that year. So he definitely got some goal line touches, things like that. And I know that he's not really projecting to play fullback with Pittsburgh, but they could line him up there in goal line sets, or they could even line him up at halfback. If they want to put some weight onto the ball carrier there. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely again, it's going to be a little bit different in the NFL where, you got a defense with goal line and you got 6 guys on the line of scrimmage that weigh 300 plus pounds. But I think he definitely, again, that's just part of his versatility where he can do all of these various different things. So, if Pittsburgh wanted to experiment something like that, I wouldn't be totally shocked to see it.
Now, we wanted to throw this in. We talked a little bit before the show that you also cover the Jacksonville Jaguars, and the Steelers brought in a rather high-profile name from the Jacksonville Jaguars in Myles Jack. Can you really quick tell us what happened to Myles Jack in Jacksonville, and do you think he can have a bounce back season from kind of slipping off of the track that he started his career on?
Yeah, I think Myles Jack overall, in my opinion, had a really solid career with Jacksonville. He definitely has some down moments. Some of the things the coaching staff tried to do with him, they tried to make him a Mike linebacker for a little bit, and that just didn't work out because he's more of a, weak side, outside linebacker and things like that. Last year, it's kind of hard to judge any player on the Jaguars given the Urban Meyer debacle because the players just, they had no leadership, they had no coaching. But Jack, there were times where he was playing at an all-pro level for Jacksonville. I definitely think that now going into a new scheme with Pittsburgh, where he's got a solid coaching staff, he definitely is going to have the opportunity there to thrive again and to kind of bounce back from what he was doing. He's still a very talented player. When Jacksonville drafted him, he was coming off of I believe it was a major knee injury, but as a rookie he ended up getting a lot of playing time and ended up becoming a really reliable player for that team. Then in 2017 was the year the Jaguars made that miraculous AFC championship game run, and Jack was a big part of that. He the old saying is Myles Jack wasn't down in that game against the Patriots where he stripped the ball away and the rest blew him dead. That was just an incredible play, and that's just kind of the flashes that you see from him and things that he can do. He is a little bit older now. He's got some more tread on the tires, but I still think that, I'm hoping that a change of scenery will be good for him. I'm rooting for him to do well there in Pittsburgh.
Was Jack's, they're going to try to use him. I thought they was going to use him as the buck linebacker for the Steelers defense, but there was some talk today of that they're going to try Devin Bush at buck linebacker, which I don't think either one of them is a true buck linebacker. Jax to me has the mobility, and he was always solid in coverage. We don't need to rewind to that 2017 season because the Jacksonville Jaguars beat the Steelers twice. And Jax was a big part of that.
Both times.
But he was the thorn in the Steelers side that year, that's for sure. But how did you think he held up against the run? Because I know Jacksonville used him in a couple of different roles through the year, but how would you rate him as a run defender?
Yeah, I think as you mentioned, I'd say he's more of a sideline to sideline guy. He's not really a thumper, but he again it kind of varied by year his performance. Some years he was very strong playing at all pro level, and some years he really took a dip. And again, some of it had to do with where the coaches were trying to use him and things like that. But for the most part, yeah, he was, like as you mentioned, relatively solid and pass coverage, and he was relatively solid against the run too. I would say that he was probably a little bit better defending the pass than coming up to stop the run. But again, it was never. I never saw anything as an issue with him, in terms of defending the run or, obviously it's when you're defending the pass, it's a lot easier to kind of pinpoint plays where he got burned on or things like that. When you're looking at, him coming up against the run, there's nothing in particular that comes to mind to me. Obviously he's good, he missed a few gaps here and there and things like that. But I think he should be solid there.
All right. Well, I want to thank you for coming on our show. Before you go, I want to give you a chance to plug the different things you do and where people can see your takes and see or read your articles. So go ahead and let people know where they can find you.
Yeah, so you can read our stuff over at theonlycolors.com. That's the Michigan State website for SB Nation, or bigcatcountry.com is where you'll find our Jaguars content. You could also find me on Twitter at Ryan Oblenis, RyanObleness. And yeah, thank you for having me on, guys.
Hey, thank you for being on, man.
Thanks, Ryan.
Appreciate it.
All right. Shannon, we're talking about Connor Heyward. And this is a question I want to ask you about Connor Heyward, because this is one that I don't have a good answer for, right? But when we look at, especially the reports now out of OTAs, he had a touchdown catch with Kenny Pickett. He had like a crazy one-handed catch that people were cheering about. He had that third down conversion. One of the reporters referred to him as Kenny Pickett's go-to guy. If he is that kind of a player, right, that is already showing that he's a guy who's going to make plays for his quarterback at catching the ball, right? Where does this guy have a chance to end up? When you, at the end of the season, when you look at the list of and you order the Steelers guys by catches, right? You look at the names here: Deontay Johnson, Najee Harris was actually second in the team in receptions last year. Pat Freiermuth was third. Chase Claypool fourth. You got some guys missing, but there's George Pickens, Calvin Austin the third. Zach Gentry got into the reception game. We've got Gunnar Olszewski looking like he's something. People are saying he like, look out for him. He actually gets separation. He's actually better than people thought he'd be. We've got Miles Boykin coming in. Where does Connor Heyward have a chance to actually make an impact on this offense as a pass catcher?
I don't think we can really judge or try to project this year's offense at all because we've never seen it. And it's going to be like night and day compared to last year's offense. It has to be just with the amount of changes, and that Matt Canada actually does have a full allotment of weapons that fit his schemes. So I'm expecting. Hayward doesn't shock me that he's making these plays and all this reports are coming out because he's a competitor. Like we talked about, any guy that's willing to do whatever is necessary on the football field has to have a strong competitive nature. And I don't care if it's mandatory minicamp. He's out there, I'm sure, going 110%. He might be the reason they're wearing them Guardian hats on, just to protect them from Connor Heyward, because he's probably going to be a little rowdy out there,
Yeah.
And,
there's 2 Haywards on that field. There's
exactly.
2 of them.
You got to protect each other, And,
yeah, you're not safe. Nobody's safe anymore.
But I think that there's going to be so much. The ball's going to be spread around. It's not going to just be force fed into Deontay Johnson because, if that offensive line has improved, which we believe it has and it will, and with the mobility of the quarterback where they can roll him out and they can do some misdirection, stuff that they just could not do, there's going to be guys, I think, be far more involved and make more of an impact. And at first, something that, we don't know who the starting quarterback is going to be. Yep. We're kind of assuming it's going to be Trubisky because of his experience. But, we need to kind of find out who the starting quarterback is going to be to make any kind of projections, because there's going to be, he's going to have a security blanket. What if Hayward, they just have so much faith in him and he's going to hit him on some plays that are very effective. That could affect Derek Watt, because to me, Hayward is more like the modern day fullback that is successful in the NFL. To me, he's more fullback / H-back than he is tight end, obviously. So he fits that profile of a weapon at fullback more than Derek Watt does. Of course, now Derek Watt is excellent on special teams, so he has all extra value there. But I think Hayward's going to make an impact, just because he can do so many different things. And I expect him to make a big play each game, whether it's a kick-out block or a special teams tackle or a big third down reception. So, I do think that even with all the talent they've acquired, that he can make an impact.
I wanted to bring up something that you mentioned to our guest, and that was Connor Heyward getting the donkey T-shirt, which, if you haven't seen, people, I think it was Brooks Pryor put it on a photo of him holding it up on Twitter. Fantastic looking shirt. It says donkey, has a donkey on it. It's clearly in fun, but that stands out to me as something, as kind of a fun way to kind of curb behavior that we've seen be a problem in the game, where you had, Chase Claypool kind of celebrating a play where it was like, dude, no, get the ball, get back there, get lined up. Yeah. What do you think of the T-shirt with the donkey on it? Because I kind of love it. I'm a big fan of it, of doing that kind of things with a younger generation. I mean, there was music at practice. Clearly, this is not Ben Roethlisberger's Steelers anymore. But what do you think of that donkey shirt?
Well, like you said, with the music and all that, it's just such a young team. I mean, there's hardly about 2 or 3 guys over 30. Everybody else is in their 20s. So, I think Tomlin's going to adjust. I think all the coaches will adjust. And that humility is never a bad thing. Confidence and you can be cocky if you're great, and you've earned it, you can be cocky. But you still have to have humility. You have to have the ability to laugh at yourself. And, so to me, that's just all in good fun, and it creates camaraderie. And, whoever the next guy is that gets the donkey shirt, he'll get ribbed on, for that. And Hayward said that he said he learned his lesson. He wasn't going to do that again. But it's kind of like when Magic Johnson, Kareem hit that shot his first game ever, and Kareem hit a shot, and Magic was celebrating like it was, they just won the championship. And Kareem said, "Hey, calm down, rookie. This is the first game." You know, I think it's probably what Hayward did. Connor was probably really excited, you know, which you understand, making a big one-handed catch like that. But the veterans, the guys who've been around a little while, they weren't going to let him forget it. But I think it's a great thing.
I do too. I absolutely love it. Now, talking about this offense, we're getting word out. Pat Freiermuth looks improved. Najee Harris is bigger and stronger and looking just as fast. Like, people are sitting there thinking, whoa, you know, Najee Harris could have a really big, you know, improvement from year 1 to year 2. As crazy as it sounds with how good he played in his first year. Pat Freiermuth looks like he's going to have a jump in his second season. Chase Claypool has been talking about taking things more seriously, about being more focused. You've got George Pickens out there making catches on the sideline. You've got, you know, Zach Gentry, who has developed and gotten more involved in the team every single season. You've got a Connor Heyward out there making plays. You've got guys like Myles Boykin being brought in. This team seems like it has an incredible amount of weapons. And I'd even bring up Calvin Austin III, who might be like the fastest and also quickest player on this team. Mm-hmm. And he's got ridiculous hands. He can run routes. He can do all that stuff. Is this just off-season hype? Or does this Steelers team actually have like a really loaded offense waiting for like kind of like it's a loaded offense waiting for an offensive line and quarterback to come in and come together and kind of lead it?
Oh, at first glance, it definitely does. There's just more explosiveness in the offense now. With the guys they've brought in, there's just more speed. There's more potential for, you know, chunk plays, stuff that just did not happen. And now, again, Najee Harris easily could add 1,500 yards last year behind an average offensive line. They didn't have an average offensive line. If the line is improved, that's going to be huge for Najee. If you see pictures of, you was talking about Freiermuth, he was standing next to Najee Harris at camp, and Harris looks bigger than Freiermuth. And I'm like, well, did Freiermuth, you know, lose that much weight? But they said that he got cut. So he might have dropped some, you know, baby fat, let's say at his age, and replaced that with muscle. So even though his weight might not have changed or even went down a little bit, he's conceivably stronger and is functionally stronger, which will help him as a blocker and getting off the line. And when you consider all these weapons that you just rattled off, what could it do for him? Because they said early in camp, Trubisky is developing a rapport with Freiermuth. Yeah. And we know that tight end of his caliber can be a quarterback's best friend. And especially learning a new system in a new location. So I think Freiermuth's going to be a huge beneficiary of that.
Oh, like, I get so excited. We had one of the things with Ben Roethlisberger that consistently came up, even when he had Heath Miller. As good as the camaraderie was there, they were, I mean, best friends. They were great together, Heath Miller and Ben Roethlisberger. Ben always was looking to throw down the field. He was always looking to go outside. And there's an argument to be made he underutilized his tight ends, especially Heath Miller, because he was always going for those chunk plays. He was always looking down the field for bigger gains. Man, Pat Freiermuth in this offense, with what he was able to do with Ben Roethlisberger last year, where he didn't even start at the beginning of the season, and he ended up third on the team in receptions, with only Deontay Johnson and Najee Harris above him. Man, like the possibility, if he really gets going with a quarterback, really gets a camaraderie built with a quarterback, and the Steelers, let's say the run game actually gets going, right? Let's preface this to say the offensive line is improved. The run game's doing better. They're doing more play action, more stuff like that. Man, the possibility for Pat Freiermuth being a Pro Bowler, being one of the top tight ends, being there behind, you know, a Travis Kelce and only a few guys in impact on the field, it's there. It's really there, and it's going to be really fascinating to see how this works out. Are you with me here? Do you think Pat Freiermuth, I think he could be kind of like the number 2 weapon on this team, with the possibility of even overtaking and becoming the guy on this offense. I think Pat Freiermuth has that upside, especially if the offense gets going with play action and things like that favor a tight end. Am I crazy, Shannon? Like, or do I need to reel this back in, or do you see that too?
No, I think it's very reasonable to expect it. I mean, Najee Harris he's going to be the bust. In other words, he's going to drive this thing, the offense. But Freiermuth, as you said, Ben loved his receivers.
Yeah.
Miller was really, truly a security blanket because when Ben was in trouble and AB or Hines or whoever it wasn't open, then he looked for Miller next.
Yeah.
It very seldom was Miller first option.
Yeah.
And that could be totally different now because any of these three quarterbacks could develop that and him be option number one. And last year, we know Harris is a good receiver out of the backfield, but it was a lot of check downs and stuff of that nature just to get rid of the ball because, again, the offensive line performance. But Freiermuth has that opportunity to he's got the best hands on the team. I'll say that right now. Now, we haven't seen enough of Pickens and any of these new guys, but I cannot imagine them having better hands than Freiermuth.
Yeah.
He catches everything. He catches things he ain't even, has no business catching, like that one touchdown against Cleveland.
Oh.
So I'm like you. I can see him taking a huge leap into that upper echelon of tight ends in the AFC. And the way the offense, Lord willing, more run oriented, but then working in all that play action and misdirection, I could see him just being a huge weapon. So his numbers might not be gaudy like, say, Kelsey's.
Yeah.
But I think his impact could be just as big.
Yeah. Man, I'm just getting more and more excited for this season, especially like hearing how good Connor Heyward, like bringing it back to Connor Heyward, how good he's doing just brings up like, there's going to be times out there. We've talked about this before where the Steelers can put out a 4 wide receiver set where your tight end is Pat Freiermuth. You've got Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool, George Pickens, and Calvin Austin III. Like, how do you cover all that? Well, you put Najee Harris in there. You're not losing anything with Najee Harris in the backfield. You take out another receiver and you put in a Connor Heyward. Right now you're sitting there. If you're the other team sitting there saying, well, Connor Heyward's the guy we're going to cheat off of. Well, he's shown he can beat people with that. Like if he can do in the NFL what he did in college, where he can be that guy where if you're sloughing off him, if you're not paying enough attention to him, he's going to catch that ball, turn, run over a defensive back, and next thing it's 20 yards down the field. Zach Gentry had 4 or 5 plays like that last season. Mm-hmm. If Connor Heyward can be a more reliable version of Zach Gentry, right? Then you can go heavy sets. You could do 2 tight ends with a fullback, a running back, and a wide receiver, and you really haven't lost much in terms of threat. You've gained power, but you haven't lost much in terms of pass catching threat either. I love it. This offense looks like it's going to be incredibly versatile, and man, I can't wait to see what Matt Canada does with it all. I really can't wait. I don't really have a question here. I'm just gushing on the Steelers. What do you think, Shannon?
Well, I don't know if you've seen the videos. We only get little, bits and pieces. But Zach Gentry is bigger, and he put on a good bit of weight last year. He's even bigger, but he was moving really fluidly. And at his height, at his size, again, misdirection rollout, hit him in the flat. He's not going to be no fun to tackle. These guys are not going to want to come up and hit him. They're going to try to go low, of course, because he's going to truck somebody. But there's just so much. KT Smith wrote an article talking about how the Steelers can dictate in the bunch and in their different packages because they have so much variety and they have so much depth in all these skill position players. So if you come out with your little package, and you got multiple cornerbacks out there, like you said, you go with the 2 tight end, use Hayward, use Gentry, Freiermuth, and you got mismatches all day. And then they've been talking about, they call George Pickens Big George. I don't know if you've seen that this week. So his nickname's Big George, which I don't know how creative that is, but they say he is really a large dude. He looks so slim, on film, but he is really put together. And at 6'3", again, it's just going to be with Chase Claypool and him and Boykins if he makes the team. There's just so much size there that they can just switch, and if you go small, they can go big and vice versa. It could be a nightmare for the opposing defenses.
Okay, I've got to bring this up. I know we're getting the end of the show, but Andrew Wilbar, a fellow PTSC contributor, came in and says, I still have too many bitter memories of Gentry blowing blocking assignments and dropping passes at Michigan. Andrew and I lamented the draft pick of Zach Gentry, and we're like, absolutely hated it. We're like, why? I'm a Michigan fan. He's a Michigan fan. We're both like, why? Why would you draft this guy? What are you going to do with him? He was slow. You're like, my opinion of him, my picture of him in the NFL was a guy tripping over his own feet, right? Like, he couldn't get out of his own way. He was just huge. Like in college, you can get away with it when you're just freaking bigger than everyone else and you're playing some team that doesn't have anyone over 6'2", and you can just throw it to Gentry and he can catch it up high. But this is the NFL. You can't get away with that. I really thought he was going to be like terrible. It's absolutely impressive what he's done, how good he's become. Like I can't get over it. It's crazy. We need to wrap up the show. So Shannon, let me send it to you. Tell everyone what you've got coming up soon here on Behind the Steel Curtain.
Well, I've got another article I'm working on, but the one that posted today is talking about Merle Hodge and how he did an interview on 93.7, and he was less than impressed with the Steelers' inside linebacking crew and the depth, and particularly Devin Bush. So he had some opinions that I respect, and but I don't entirely agree with everything he said. So check that article out. I give some reasoning why I think it's a little too early to cut bait, like he said, and let's hold out hope that he's going to rebound. But other than that, that's all I got going on right at the moment.
I'm sorry. I keep needing my microphone because of different things. Sorry. I've got an article coming out this week I'm excited about for the Vertex. The Dave Schofield last week his Stat Geek was about Derek Watt and how Derek Watt his contract should be viewed as a special teams player and not as a fullback, because that's what he primarily was. I listened to that and I was like, you know what? I should do a film room on Derek Watt. I've been wanting to do something with special teams and cover what he brings on special teams. So that's what we did. The Vertex, this coming up, I don't know when it's coming out this week, but it should be coming out at some point this week still, is going to be on Derek Watt, completely looking at his special teams. Took place from 4 different sets that he plays in. So check that out. We're talking about Connor Heyward, and a lot of people are saying, Connor Hayward's going to take Derek Watt's spot as fullback. It's not going to happen. Derek Watt is going to make this team. He's a special teams captain. He is valuable. Check that out and see, why I say that. I also am working on a piece on Alex Highsmith. I talked about him in my cutting room floor show. And I want to back that up with some film, what I said about him on there. So make sure you check that out. As always, check out all the podcasts on the Behind the Steel Curtain family of podcasts. Check out BehindTheSteelCurtain.com. We're covering everything this offseason. Training camp, all this stuff's coming up. We're going to be on it. We're going to be covering all of it. So make sure you're there with us. As I say every week, have a great week. Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming, watching the show. Thank you for listening. Have a great week. And as always, let's go Steelers.